Alexander Ovechkin breaking that record on Long Island with how that building erupted for him. Islanders fans were in there. They knew they were a part of history. Capitals fans were in there, obviously, chasing alongside Ovi's great chase of the great one. And it's like they're down 2-1 at that moment, and the entire team understands the assignment. The entire league, there's Gary Bettman, the commish, obviously Waino. I believe the FBI is represented up there as well. It was a moment, I think. I don't know enough about it, but so. I think that is who,
you are
who
correct.
That was.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. It was a magical moment, and it happened, Nick, in the exact same amount of games that it took Wayne Gretzky to have the previous record. Feels like the hockey gods were written all over this one. Great for hockey, great for the sport, great for sports as a whole, Nick. Honestly, it felt magical as I was watching from afar, and I couldn't even imagine what the building was like inside, Nick.
Absolutely absurd, Pat. A bit serendipitous, as you mentioned, in the amount of games played. Also happened to be the same day 20 years prior in which the Capitals won the draft lottery and earned the right to select Alex Ovechkin number 1 overall when they didn't finish the season with the worst record in the league. I believe they were second or third. The team that finished first in terms of finishing last for the lottery odds was actually the Pittsburgh Penguins. So a bit of fate, how it could have been reversed there. You could have seen Ovechkin as a Penguin, and maybe you saw Sidney Crosby as a Washington Capital the following season. But here we are, Ovechkin shaking Waino's hand. He's the greatest goal scorer of all time, not just of this generation. You can put that debate to rest. There's still a GOAT debate in hockey that I don't think will ever be settled because we get into it all the time with basketball in terms of the eras. But you've got Waino, you've got Mario Lemieux, you've got Bobby Orr, and you've got Gordie Howe. Those are the 4 mainstays of the older generation. Now you've got Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, probably Nick Lidstrom, and whoever else can earn their way into that 4th spot for the new era. So it's a great day for hockey. It was an awesome celebration yesterday, and it's been really cool to watch the sport come together to watch Ovi on this chase.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it all, and I also like the fact that he goes and cracks open a cold beer immediately afterwards, AJ. You know, whenever he tied Waino, there was a video of him just going right to his locker and just cracking open a beer. And everybody's like, enjoy cold beer after you do something great, which is why we like hockey. Hockey's like an old school feel, old school vibes. And Alexander Ovechkin represents all of that perfectly. He doesn't have an 8-pack. He's going to have a good time. Here's a beer, sir. Here you go. Yep, welcome. Here's another beer for you to enjoy yourself. When he won Lordo for the first time, we watched him with the Stanley Cup literally across state lines, just having a blast. The guy is committed to his sport. He loves his sport. And I think everybody in hockey believes that he represents it very, very well, AJ. It's a beautiful thing. And you look at all the records. You know, you look at everything, 149 game opening goals, which is an NHL record. Okay, game tying goals, NHL record. Go-ahead goals, NHL record. Game winning goals, NHL record. 30-goal season, NHL record. 40-goal seasons, NHL record.
Right.
50-goal seasons, NHL record.
Right.
Seasons leading the NHL in goals, 9. NHL record. It's like this guy was able to find the net on a regular basis, and that only comes from a massive amount of hard work whenever nobody's watching. The amount of hours this guy has had to put in with his stick and a puck, whether it was just, you know, on the street or side of your house growing up over in Russia, whatever it was, just to get to this point where you have this much control of the puck, this much confidence, this much respect, and this much greatness. It's a massive tribute to the work ethic to get there, and I think that needs to be celebrated as well alongside all the records.
Yeah, think about, like, why does it feel it's so easy to root for Ovi? Is it because he is, like, what we call a throwback in an era where we don't see a whole lot of guys do it, I guess, the way, like, be completely authentic to who he is and still be the – I mean, it's unbelievable when you put up all those records, what, 140-something game-winning goals or whatever he had. Like 291 go-ahead goals is nuts to me to think, hey, what, game's tied, here we go. This puts us in the lead. Like, everything the guy does, and then obviously this little swan dive situation was just a perfect celebration for Ovi. But the game was 2-1 at the moment. What happened the rest of this game? They had to restart this thing. What did the rest of the guys do after that? That had to be a tough transition to the celebration.
This was like when Drew Brees had that record, right? In the middle, he did the passing thing down there in the Superdome, brother. And they stopped the game, basically, and had a full celebration. I appreciated the fact that everybody in NHL, everybody in hockey, everybody in the sports world was like, yeah, they should stop the game. Yeah, this is absolutely unbelievable. To go back to the point in the conversation in the first hour, look at Wayne. That was a good clap. Seemed like he was genuinely okay.
Yeah.
Seemed like he was genuinely thrilled that a record of his was broken, because he's going to be remembered as the greatest of all time regardless. I'm happy that he's confident in himself enough to have that, especially with what we've learned from other sports potentially. I'm the greatest of my generation, you're the greatest of your generation. Can we get along? Probably not, because there's a little bit of drama and egos and everything like that. So once again, hockey nails it. I appreciate in the first hour, and Conman, you might be able to talk about this because, you used to be a fan of the Bruins, and then obviously the Bruins have certainly tried to change up a little bit this year.
Yeah.
But taking away the pressure of him having to get the goal record before the playoffs, I think is huge.
Yeah.
Like his whole team not having to worry about just getting one of the hardest records of all time, now just being able to focus on hockey. Not that him scoring isn't good for their team, but that's a good pressure, I think, to have off of their shoulder, man.
It's also great vibes. Like, of course, get the pressure out of there, but also just for everyone on that team. Like, I know they just brought in a kid from BC who they signed, Leonard, and for him, he scored his first goal on the way to this chase. It was the empty netter, but just for that guy to understand how cool it is for the history to be made and being a part of the team, but just the vibe of the entire, of the entire boys, of the entire bench, the coaches, everything. It's like, okay, now we don't even have to think about this anymore. Now we can just go out and play hockey, and they are one of the best teams in the league, So it's not as if this was one of those situations where, a guy's on the team, similar to Steph Curry, really, like you mentioned before, where, they have this record looming, but also they know, hey, we have a real shot to win, Lordo this year. It wasn't one of those situations where you're kind of limping to the finish and then, happy you get this kind of consolation prize in a bad season. It's like, no, this is one of those things they check off on the road to going to win the entire thing. And, we mentioned before, too, Ovechkin, of course, he broke his leg earlier in the season, but, like, who says this is it? Hopefully he comes back and he has another 2 years, Like, this was really cool. Imagine him getting to 1,000. How cool that would be.
Pat.
Would be very cool, and I don't know if I froze or not, if it's just on my side, but would be incredibly cool. There's somebody that's joining us now that we were kind of dealing with the tech issue, that his opinion worth a lot more than any of ours. Ladies and gentlemen, 6-time Stanley Cup champion, one of the GOATs, Mark Messier.
Yeah,
Moose! How you doing, buddy?
Good. Doing amazing. What a day for hockey yesterday. It was incredible, actually.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Your feelings on basically the full focus of the NHL, at least the coverage. I'm not saying every team has been focusing on it, but has been this great chase. Has this been something that has just been deemed an impossible record to ever be broken? And how do you feel about the NHL embracing Ovi's chase entirely, seemingly, through it all, Moose?
Well, I have to say that nobody thought anybody would break Gordie Howe's records of games played, goals, points. Sure enough, Wayne came along and did all that. I don't think anybody would have thought that Alex Ovechkin would have been able to catch Wayne for 894 goals. It was unthinkable. I mean, we were talking about the statistics last night, 45 goals for 20 straight years averaging. The longevity, the durability, the focus, the commitment. I mean, you can use all the superlatives that you want to describe Alex and what he's been able to accomplish. It's unfathomable. But here we are. Records are made to be broken, as Wayne has always said. And sure enough, always said he'll be the first one there to shake his hand when he does break it. And sure enough, he did.
Yeah, it was a cool moment watching the great one and the great eight embrace each other, as opposed to what some other sports might do. Now, we don't know hockey anywhere near as much as you, or anywhere near as much as we know our sport, but we have chatted about this a couple times. How good do you think it is for the Capitals, who have a great team this year, that they kind of get this out of the way now as they look forward to the playoffs? Do you think there was a weight on that team to get this done for Ovi because how much they love him? Do you think it was something that was a distraction, or do you think they were just excited to get this done for their guy in Ovi? And what do you think it means for them going forward now into the most important part of the season?
Well, I can speak firsthand of being in this similar situation with Wayne and Edmonton, chasing 50 goals in 39 games, being a part of all his records, 60-some records that he was chasing. There is some element of and I don't call it a distraction. I actually think it's one of the things that really galvanized this team this year. And I think one of the most important factors that we can look at through this Ovechkin's race to 895 was how well the team had played, how well they galvanized together as a team. There was a common thread that got that team together this year. Yeah, they made some trades in the offseason. They improved their team, and a lot of players had great years, but you can't discredit how important this was to the team's success this year. And I think it even made it that much more special that the team was playing well, and they were, leading the league in points for most of the year, and maybe we'll have a chance to win the President's Trophy. I just think it's been a magical year for so many reasons for the Washington Capitals. And I think one of the things I'm most proud of, to be honest with you, is how far Alex has come as a leader. It always wasn't a smooth ride for Alex as a player. Obviously, he's always scoring goals and doing great things. And they had some great teams back in the day, but they had a hard time trying to figure out how to win. And leadership is critical in order for a team to have success. And Alex has become an incredible leader on and off the ice for that team this year. And you can just witness it by the way they talk about him, their body language, their facial expressions when things are like this are happening. He galvanized, encompassed everybody in this moment, which I think made it so special for the whole organization, the players, managers, coaches, trainers, anybody in that ecosystem, fans alike shared in this moment.
Yeah, hell yeah. And that's the hockey difference. That's the beautiful part of your guys' sport. It does feel like everybody's more together than any other sport in the current moment. You only played for 25 years in the NHL as a captain, so what the hell would you know? AJ has a question for you, Mark.
Yeah, speaking of that, playing for 25 years and being one of the all-time greats in the NHL, I guess for former stars like you, how does it feel with Ovechkin breaking this rule? It feels like, for me, at least as an outsider, kind of a casual, it's so easy to be happy for the guy because he seems like he does it his way. He's, like you said, he's grown into a great leader, but he also seems like a tough dude that will stand up for every one of his teammates and could play in any era. So for you as former players, how does it feel knowing, hey, this is a great guy that actually beat Wayne's record?
Well, for me, it was emotional watching it yesterday because of my history with Wayne as a friend, as a teammate, winning championships, watching history, watching genius my whole career on a day-to-day basis with Wayne. I learned so much from him. His ability to put everybody else ahead of him, the way he put the game ahead of everybody, including himself. And I think, when Gordie Howe was there to greet Wayne and shake his hand when he passed Gordie Howe, that resonated with everybody, I think, in our sport. It certainly resonated with Wayne because he was a big Gordie Howe fan. And he understood the magnitude and gravity of the moment yesterday in the history of our game. And Wayne did such an amazing job, as an ambassador to the game. His whole career he did, but then again yesterday was on full display. And it couldn't have been a better moment for our league. It couldn't have been more inspiring for our boys and girls that, have their own goals and aspirations. And this is something that the new generation of players should be hanging on to because, wow, when you talk about the greats that ever played the game, Alex Ovechkin is going to always be recognized as probably the greatest goal scorer of all time. And that is something that not to be taken lightly.
I like that you, 25 years in the NHL, 6-time Stanley Cup champ, know Wayne on a personal basis and everybody else. You go, probably the best goal scorer of all time because it's going to be a debate amongst people. Everybody else is like, greatest goal scorer of all time, stamped, signed, sealed, delivered. I appreciate your perspective. Now, what is your perspective as a man who played for 25 years in the NHL? Connor has a question.
Yeah, Moose, do you see this being the kind of end to Ovechkin's career? Obviously, who knows what happens in the playoffs, but let's say, the Capitals go on and win Lordo. Do you think Ovechkin kind of sails off into the sunset, or do you think he might still have a few years left here with the Capitals, especially because, they kind of made it out of the rebuild and they're a great, great team again?
Yeah, it's amazing how quickly they've come out of this rebuild. I don't think anybody in hockey saw the success that Washington's had coming into this year, but you got to give everybody in that organization a ton of credit, especially the players. It's funny how teams can grab traction sometimes. You never know what that's going to be or what's going to galvanize a team. Clearly, they galvanized around this pace with Alex. But I think for me, if I was a guessing guy, and I don't know Alex well enough to know what his plans are, but I would have to think that he's going to come back at least for one more year.
Yes.
I think his contract is up after this year, and then I think it'll be determined where he's at. You can see his kids on the ice, his wife, whether he wants to go back to Russia and make a family life there for himself or go back and play there. I don't know. I don't think anybody really knows, but I know one thing, that he'll be back for another year, which is just going to increase that goal lead by even more.
Yeah, up over 1,000, obviously inevitable, seemingly, if he's going to play another year. And hockey seems like such an interesting sport because, like basketball, we were talking to Braun a couple weeks ago. They had Luka, so he's able to go off ball a little bit more. Now, he's still doing windmill dunks at the age of 40, which is absurd. I mean, he's 6'9", so people are going to say should be able to do it. It's like at the age of 40, though. I'm 37. I just pulled a hammy taking a dump in before the show started. But nonetheless, in hockey, you can't really hide, right? Ovi's playing his best season, having his best stuff still, and he's playing the same way he's been playing his whole career. Or is there a way that you can adjust as you get older to be able to keep up with the young lad's game?
Yeah, I think his game has changed. I don't think he covers quite as much ice as he used to. I think he conserves his energy. He's a smarter player now. He still gets into the same positions to score as he always did. It's just a different look for him. I don't think he's quite as physical. And let's be honest, he's almost 40 years old. If he doesn't have some young guys around him doing the chopping the wood and carrying the water, they wouldn't have had the year that they have had this year. He's an incredible weapon. A goal-scoring weapon, and that is how they're using him this year. And I kind of compare it to Michael Jordan later in his career. It's not like Michael Jordan couldn't get to the hoop and dunk and do all the crazy things that we had seen him throughout his whole career, but he also developed an incredible outside jump shot from 20 or 25 feet, which made him even that much more dangerous. And if you think about Ovechkin, he can still score from the inside. When he wants to, he can still get to the inside. Nobody can move him because he's so big and strong. And of course, one of the best weapons that he's had his whole career is his shot, which he can score from the outside. So he's still a double threat in that regard. His game, I would say, if there's anything, he just does not cover as much ground as he once did. He uses his energy probably smarter than he did when he was younger. He had more, obviously more giddy up and more horsepower probably then, but he still finds a way, and you got to evolve. He's played 20 years now. If you don't change, if you don't evolve as a player and as a person in the game will pass you by. Him and Sidney Crosby, both, who came in at the same time, have been able to evolve as players, keep up with the times, keep up with the technology, and have remained incredibly relevant in what we consider a young man's sport.
You're the best. We appreciate the hell out of you. That's Mark Messier. We'll be back next week on ESPN. We continue on digital. We'll see you there. Hey, Moose, we appreciate the hell out of you, man. Thank you for taking the time on this historic Monday.
Thanks for having me on. We'll see you guys soon. The playoffs are starting soon.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go, Moose.
Come on now, Moose.
Mark Messier.
Baby Moose. Baby Moose.